Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video on Cardiff Killers and Mysteries. Today, our story is about Carol Ann Stevens and stranger danger. If you're from Cardiff, drop us a comment and leave us a like. It was the 7th of April, 1959, and it was raining heavily. Carol Ann Stevens was a 6-year-old girl who lived in Malaphant Street, Kitayes, Cardiff, with her mother Mavis, her stepfather Ken, and a friend named Kevin Northcott. Carol was described as being tall for her age, measuring at 3 foot 6 inches, and plump, with a fresh complexion and rosy cheeks. She had brown eyes and wore steel-rimmed glasses. She was said to have been a happy, lively, and confident child. On this day, Mavis, Carol's mother, was busy preparing dinner and sent 6-year-old Carol out to the shops for cigarettes and sweets. When Carol returned home from the shops, she asked her mother if she could go outside and play. Although Mavis was busy preparing food and dinner wouldn't be long, Carol seemed excited, so Mavis allowed her to go and play until food was ready. Carol excitedly ran off to interrupt Kevin of his hobby of collecting car number plates, to boast that she was going on a car ride and asked if he would like to join her. He declined her offer and off she went. Unfortunately, she never came back, and that was the last time anyone saw 6-year-old Carol Ann Stevens alive. Initially, detectives turned their attention onto James Lynch, Carol's biological father and Mavis Stevens' first husband. James moved to London following his divorce with Mavis 4 years prior to Carol's disappearance. The word on the street was that Carol's real father wanted his daughter back. James Lynch found out about Carol's disappearance after seeing it in a newspaper and promptly went to the police station to try and clear his name. The 33-year-old was interviewed by Metropolitan Police and was able to prove he hadn't seen his daughter in 4 years and had absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance. This meant police were forced to turn their attention elsewhere. Mavis made her own inquiries with neighbours and friends and was shocked when neighbours told her about a strange man who was peering over her back garden wall into Carol's bedroom on the Monday night. Neighbours also told her about Carol getting out of a strange car. A few weeks prior to Carol's disappearance, Carol had told multiple friends and classmates that she had a new uncle and that he would take her for lovely rides in his motor car. Adult witnesses described a small green saloon-type car that they saw Carol get out of not far from Carol's home on Malaphant Street the day before her abduction. They said they thought it seemed strange that she was dropped off around the corner and not directly outside her house. A 16-year-old boy said he had seen the car in the days leading up to Carol's disappearance. The boy described the man sitting inside as dark-haired, wearing a trench coat and a brimmed hat. He was reading some papers when Carol knocked on the car window. Kevin Northcott, Carol's friend who lived with her and her parents, almost caught Carol's abductor after collecting all but one of the number plates in the area the day Carol had disappeared. Unfortunately, the one car license plate he didn't get was the one that he had saw Carol enter. However, he could describe the car and the man who sat in the driver's seat. The car was parked on the junction of Robert Street and Fair Oak Road, near Fair Oak Garage. Kevin said he saw Carol approach the green car and tapped on the passenger side door, where a man in his 30s who was reading or writing on some papers was waiting. Mavis desperately issued an appeal where she said, "One thing I am sure of is that by now Carol will be crying for me. She is a friendly girl and would talk to anyone however much we discouraged her, but she didn't like being away from me for too long." Carol Ann Stevens' disappearance sparked one of the biggest police operations of the time in Wales. Cardiff police teamed up with detectives from Scotland Yard and a frantic nationwide search began for 6-year-old Carol. Detectives searched nearby woods, Kitayes Cemetery and empty houses in search of the young child. Police guarded Cardiff Central Station and watched passengers board the Fishguard boat for Ireland. Police interviewed over 10,000 people, checked nearly 3,000 cars, and took more than 1,100 statements during the hunt for Carol. Exactly 2 weeks after Carol's abduction, on the 21st of April, a surveyor working on a river culvert near hamlet of Horeb, north of Llanelli in Carmarthenshire, came across the deceased body of a child. Carol Ann Stevens' body was found over 60 miles away from her home. It was thought that she had been dead for a week before being discovered in the stream, covered by overhanging branches and leaves. She was wearing the same outfit as the day she was abducted. Her skirt was around her feet. One of her shoes was found 5 feet away from her body, and the other was found around 15 foot downstream. Carol's abduction came at the same time as a huge amount of car sales in Britain, and growing concerns that killers would use cars to abduct children began. Carol Ann Stevens' death forced the Stranger Danger campaign to be launched. More than 6 decades after Carol Ann Stevens' death, her investigation was reopened in November 2020. Former Police Chief Jackie Roberts, who led the case accompanied by former detectives and crime experts, had announced they had a suspect. In 1959, Hamlet owned 8 houses, 1 pub, a single chapel, and a brickworks factory. Absence of injuries to Carol Ann Stevens' body led investigation teams to believe that Carol's body was not thrown into the river culvert. And as Hamlet was such a small area, Carol's murderer must have known the area well. All employees of the brickworks factory and the people of Horeb were questioned, and widespread interviews were carried out along the 60-mile radius between Carol's home in Cathays, Cardiff, and where her body was found in Horeb, Llanelli, including motorists and farming communities in the area at the time. A man named Spencer Hughes helped the reinvestigation team by informing them of a memoir written by Police Detective Superintendent Roy Davies. The professional memoir was read mainly by friends and family of Roy, but had one section that featured the murder and investigation of Carol Ann Stevens. Carol's abduction had been one of his first cases as an officer. Roy Davies expressed his true thoughts about the unfortunate case and how he suspected a man named Ronald Edward Murray. Ronald's name came up when checking the list of employees that worked at the J.P. Zammit brick factory in Horeb. Ronald had been one of many employees interviewed, but Ronald aroused Roy Davies' suspicions. Ronald Edward Murray, born originally in Australia, came to Cardiff after World War II. He lived with his wife, Della Murray, in Llansamlet, Swansea. And from January 1951 to April 1952, he worked as a steeplejack and steel erector at the brickworks factory in Horeb, just yards from where Carol Ann Stevens' body was found. The reinvestigation team were able to track down a former neighbour of Ronald and Della's, who gave the investigators some vital information. The unnamed neighbour reported that Ron and his wife both seemed like nice people. He said Ron was charming and he could make friends easily, but he told a lot of lies, which left you feeling suspicious of him. He used to buy and sell sweets to the children in the neighbourhood. The neighbour told investigators that Ronald had a company car and said it wasn't very big, possibly something like a Morris Minor, and that the police took it away when they found Carol Ann Stevens' body. The neighbour also told the investigation team that he had once questioned Ronald Edward Murray about the day Carol had gone missing. Ronald told his neighbour that he had fallen ill in work on that Tuesday when he was in Cardiff, and that he was on his way home when he hit a dog with his car. Ronald explained to the neighbour how he had got out of the car and put the injured dog in and drove home. But when Ronald got home and opened the car door, the dog ran away, so Ron proceeded to run after the dog. The neighbour stated that he found Ronald's story to be very suspicious. Upon further investigation and intensive research, investigators found that Ronald Edward Murray was working for Carson's Chocolates in Bristol, and the company gave their workers company cars that were green Morris Minors. One of the areas that Ronald delivered chocolates to was the area of Cathays where Carol went missing. An employment record for the company informed investigators that he'd asked for more children's lines of chocolates as part of his perks and benefits for working for the chocolate factory. Ronald Edward Murray is the strongest suspect in Carol Ann Stevens' case, and the police continue to investigate whether or not he was responsible for Carol's death. Unfortunately, Ronald died in 1973 living in Penarth, leaving the case to be unsolved for the meantime. Mavis Stevens died in 2002, never having justice for her daughter. Looking into Ronald Edward Murray's records, investigators found things of concern. 10 years after Carol Ann Stevens' death, Ronald Edward Murray claimed he found his wife dead in the living room with an overpowering smell of gas. Coroners recorded her death as accidental, even though his explanation of what happened seemed suspicious. Ronald claimed it was a trick gone wrong. Apparently, Ronald used to trick his son by turning off the gas at the mains and then asking his son to make him a cup of tea. When his son tried to light the stove to put the kettle on, it wouldn't light. Ron would tease his son by telling him he wasn't even man enough to make a cup of tea. Ronald claimed his son tried to play the same trick on him, but mistakenly left the gas on, and the results were that his wife died. Did Della Murray die at the hands of her son from a nasty trick, or by a trickster hiding as her husband? Thank you all for watching, sending you cookies from my heart to yours. Until next time, bye bye.